Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Dahleen, and I'm with the CMBA, Mortgage and Technology and Marketing Committee. And today, I'm here to give you this killer presentation that we brought together today. It's people versus automation. So it's creating a frictionless transformation in 2021, and I think we all need that. So thanks for showing up today. And today, really quick, I know everybody's looking to get more loans in 2021, even with the refis going down, but I want to shout out to our sponsors today. Experience the Accelerate, the award-winning customer engagement platform. It features lead management, CRM, call routing, sales enablement. It also features marketing automation, borrower engagement. It also has data intelligence that's innovative, and it uses this multi-channel marketing like text and social media and email and direct mail and phone and the ringless voicemails, right? And also the retargeting and much more. So Accelerate, our sponsor today, made this show free for you, and we're really happy about that. They're great people to us here at the CMBA, so appreciate your support. And they're helping lenders close more loans through better engagement. So schedule your personal demo today at Accelerate.com. Accelerate.com. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Casey. Casey, it's all you.
Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for jumping on, and thank you to everyone who jumps on later. SLK is so excited to partner with the California Mortgage Bankers Association. We are newer members, and we're just happy to jump in and share some insight. My name is Casey Hughes-Wade. I'm Vice President of Relationships at SLK Global Solutions. Believe it or not, we've been around for 20 plus years, so we have a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise, and we are a leading provider of digital platforms and mortgage process management solutions. So we have a lot of insight to offer today. I did bring some experts with me. I'm not going to be the only one talking. If anyone knows me, you know I love to talk, I love to chat, but I did bring some experts. I have a colleague of mine, Anthony Galiano. He is SVP of Mortgage at SLK Global Solutions. Anthony has over 23 years of experience in the mortgage banking financial industry, all different service providers, some on the lending, some on the service provider side. And then I have my good friend, and yes, Anthony's my friend as well. So, not to put one over the other. I love them both equally. Paul Gilady, he is the COO of Pinnacle Home Loans. And he's also a board member of the California Mortgage Bankers Association. He's also the co-chair of the Mortgage Innovators Conference, which is going to be coming up in a couple months through the California Mortgage Bankers Association. Paul's a visionary. He is enthusiastic about technology, and he loves innovation. So we're so happy to have Paul here today to talk about this conversation. So can you all see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up, because I'm kind of going blind here. Okay.
Share it again if you could. I don't see it yet.
Okay. That's what it says, show my screen again, so I was confused. Okay, good. I'm going to be.
Got it. You got it. Good.
So the topic, I just want to briefly kind of introduce why we were having this conversation today. And it's such an important conversation, with the changes that have happened in the last 12 months, there's been this huge push in innovation in technology, right? And when you think about the mortgage kind of manufacturing process, the manual workflows that have been in place are now inundated with technology. And the conversation was really being explored. How do we take both, right? How do we take the people and the workflows and the valuable insight that people actually provide within that workflow, and then couple it with technology, with automation? And how do you streamline and really create a frictionless workflow? And it's really about adding both together, right? The manual pieces plus the technology pieces together. So we're going to be talking about the evolution of our industry, giving you some technology insights, and really, providing insight into what technology can provide through innovation, through integrations, and how it provides authenticity to your company as a whole. So what we're paying attention to, Anthony, I'm going to hand it over to you. You're the expert. What's happening in the industry. What is the mindset? What have we seen in the last 12 months and maybe the last, 20 years in technology?
Thank you, Casey. And I have to tell you, it's going to be difficult to follow that because I was very engrossed in what you were saying, and you definitely have a great presence. So, when we think about our industry and kind of where we've been, where we are today, and where we really need to go as an industry, I mean, if you think back even 5 or 10 years ago to think about how much of the process was truly a manual process, right? bringing that to today, I mean, you know, we all know where we've been as an industry, right? But, you know, when you think about where we are today, and it's been an interesting year, like you said, the last 12 months, I think with this global pandemic, it's really kind of pushed our industry into really focusing on technology and where that technology can take us, right? You know, interest rates continuously hit record lows. You know, every lender out there is seeing record-breaking numbers month over month and continue to do volumes that for a lot of companies they've never seen before. And the amazing part to that is the way that we've been able to pivot as quickly as we did as an industry to a remote workforce, right? I think our industry overall has really, I guess, fought against the remote environment. You know, we're all in this industry, and we like to make sure that we have an eye on what's happening within our office and making sure that the work's getting done and everyone's working. So to be able to kind of make that move to a remote workforce as quickly and as seamlessly as we did is really great to see for our industry. The question is, how do we take that now and continue to grow from a technology perspective, right? As important as technology is, you know, we're talking about technology versus people. And you mentioned it as well, Casey. You know, the people are an extremely important part to this. So it's not, do we look at technology to replace the people that we have doing the jobs? And the answer to that is no. It's how do we take technology and where can we really, you know, add that in the right place to streamline processes to make the workflow for the people that are doing the work that much easier. It really gets them engaged in what they're doing.
So those are awesome points, Anthony. So there's been like there's a foundation or almost a diving board to jump off of with the mindset shift or the mindset that's occurred. And to your point, both Casey and Anthony, you know, congratulations to our industry, to the technology visionaries, to the investors in technology. What has occurred in our industry over the past, what would you say, 3-4 years has been mind-blowing. It's been hyper-focused on the consumer experience, which is great, right? Because it's adapting to what the consumer's needs are in general life our industry has. But I think now what we're going to do with technology and what we're going to concentrate on, and to me is going to be that much more, if not the same, as excitement, if you will, is we're going to take a look at technology inward and bring technology to operations and sales internally. And what that will do from my perspective, and I know we've talked about this, Anthony and Casey, is it will bring an experience to the consumer that's really authentic, right? If we take that technology investment and start to turn it and bring that greatness of the consumer experience and bring that inward to operations, to sales assistants, to marketing, Casey. Like, think about that authentic experience that will drive to the consumer. So if we take a look at what the technology might be able to do to operations, we could look at one of the biggest measurements in the operation function are closing times. How many companies use that as a matrix, a marking point for what they have the ability to do? And we know our closing times have to be firm. They've got to be tight. They've got to provide assurance, not only to the consumer or the referral partner, but also, again, internally. Let's look at it internally, what that does to someone's psyche, if you will, that works at a company. If they know that they state their closing times and they know it's true and they can adhere to it, you know, that's again a mind shift. That's a mindset shift. It also brings accountability, right, to the table.
And probably
Absolutely.
more referrals, right, Paul? Probably more referrals.
Yeah, more referrals, more business. Yes, of course, right.
Which is a great thing. And to your point, Paul, I mean, you know, when we talk about closing times and really focusing on what that looks like, right? Because, that's where your pull-through comes in, and that's where, it's making the consumer happy, making sure you're getting those loans closed in the timeline that you gave to them. But if you start to break down where some of the slowness comes in that process of getting that loan originated and then getting to the end date of, we're now ready to close on this loan. I think every lender in our industry and even a lot of the vendors in our industry are seeing some of these pain points between processing and underwriting, right? And one of the big areas we look at as a partner is underwriting touches. And I know every company's looking at underwriting touches and really focusing on that. With the record volumes of loans coming in, we're looking at this as, how do we get through these? How do underwriters actually get to the point where they can underwrite these loans as quickly as possible? So it's looking at different technologies to really get to the point where an underwriter is touching the loan fewer times, right? So, when we look at some statistics that I think we're going to show in the next couple of slides, of kind of where we've been, where we are today, and then what consumers are expecting. To your point, you mentioned that technology so far has been really about the upfront piece, right? Focusing on the consumer. How do we use technology to make that process a lot smoother for the consumer, a lot easier for them to get the process started? But we're not truly focused yet, or organizations haven't been truly focused yet on how do we make that back office piece more streamlined? How do we do that, right? So we're looking at ways that we can assist with underwriting, processing, getting those loans, a quality loan into an underwriter, so another underwriter can review that and kind of limit the number of times they're touching it. Another area we look at is the QCing of those loans, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're putting together a quality loan that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, and the loan is going to be able to be sold, and we're not going to have any issues with that, right? So it's getting those QC pieces, which today, for the most part, is a lot of manual work, right? So how do we get some of that piece automated? All of that, and when you think about how heavily regulated we are and the compliance involved in a lot of this, when we talk about technology, closing times, underwriting touches, the quality control piece of it, that's leading to a continuous increase in what the cost is to manufacture a loan. When lenders are talking about the volumes that they're doing and everyone's happy with the volumes that they're doing today, the cost to manufacture a loan continues to go up. And why is that, right? So, technology plays a big piece in that, because then companies are investing in technology. So there are some costs involved in that. It's how do we take that technology, make sure we're using the right technology, and then what are we doing with the information we're getting from the technology that we have?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of like innovating with the technology, or innovation and using the technology as a tool, and then taking a look at the data that our industry has as a whole, and where can we get really granular with it, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. That's really where we see a lot of this bigger stuff happening is that once you're kind of pivoting and you're using the right technology, and then you pull in additional data sources that you didn't think you had, you can eliminate downstream activity or upstream activity by reutilizing that data. Great point, Anthony.
And just to kind of piggyback on what, oops, sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, you know me, I always want to jump in whenever I can. So just to piggyback on some of the things Joe said about, having this, bringing in more referral partners, right? And really having that seamless workflow that, you take the people, you take the technology, and you evaluate, you take the actionable items that technology provides, and you use that data to do better on the front end, right? So it's all interconnected is what I hear. It's kind of what I'm hearing is that everything works together. And, I'm obviously passionate about marketing and branding and some of the front end pieces, as you guys know. And so all of it really works together to empower that loan officer, right? To have the right information, to have the right brand behind them, so that they're getting more referral partners, right? When you can close a loan in 28 days versus 48, days, you're going to be out there, promoting that and talking about that. Recruiting efforts go up. So I really hear that's all connected with the marketing piece as well, which is important, I think, to note.
Yeah, it's all completely intertwined. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at these numbers, and again, we look at where we've been as an industry and where we are today, just from a closing time perspective, right? Even when things were a lot more manual, the average closing time was about 47 days. Where we are today, and again, it has a lot to do with the volumes that we're seeing. But the average today is 48 to 55 days. So we've done a great job from a technology perspective in that upfront piece, really engaging with the consumer. But as you can see, we haven't gotten much better with getting those loans closed as quickly as we could. I think there was a poll that went out and asking consumers how long they think it should take to close a mortgage loan. And consumer sentiment says they want it to be less than 30 days. And Paul, as a lender, I mean, how important is that to hit that kind of number and consistently be able to close loans in less than 30 days?
I think
it's
Go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead. Sorry, Joe. No, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, you got to be able to hit that number. If you're doing purchases, by the way, right, you're probably in this environment moving those to the front of the stack so you can get those purchases done because that comes with a certain commitment. But refinances, I mean, there's really no reason a lot of these times, especially for these rate and terms, when you have an appraisal waiver, I mean, and you're utilizing, day one certainty type stuff and Freddie Mac AIM, verification of income and assets. There's no reason why we need to have a lot of this type of documentation. I've been seeing a lot of files that are coming in now with the husband and wife, where the wife doesn't even want to show any income because she doesn't want to give any documentation when they know that the husband still qualifies for easy rate and term. So, those type of cases, we should be way below 30 days. I mean, what do you got to do?
Yeah. And, just to your point, Joe, and to add to Anthony's question, I guess. So let's take a look at that question. How important is that 30, coming in 30 days or under? And everything that I'm looking at, it's almost like three-dimensional, that three-dimensional approach, or this freeway of everything, all the information, all the data, and it's affecting. So obviously, we're going to pay attention to the consumer's needs, right? Our referral partners. How can we get our consumers' offer accepted? We know we can close at this time. Is there backing behind that with what we've done previously so that the real estate agent that's involved in the transaction knows, yep, if Pinnacle says they can close in 30 days and SLK is a part of their solution provide, we know they can close in 30 days, right? So there's that aspect of it. But also think about if we get efficient and if we use technology to drive what occurs in operations to close in that 30-day marker, and we know we can do it, there's also, and we talked about this earlier, there's a mind shift change that's occurring. Mindset of operations, when they see a close of escrow at 25 days, they're not sweating because they know they can do it. Right? So if we're saying we can do it and we know we can do it and we have the tools to do it, there's alignment and everybody understanding that we can do it. And so therefore we have this foundation of, again, this true authentic experience. We've brought in the right solution providers. We've brought in the right technology stack to whether it's engagement on the front end or back end. We brought in the right team members to understand the level of importance and how to do it and think creatively, because we all know innovation plus creativity leads to success. Mm-hmm. So that future idea of closing in 30 days, no matter what if it's a refi or a purchase, there's so much behind that. It's so purposeful. It's such a strong purpose. What about the
effects on your cost, Paul? If you close, if you not have the file, this gestation just sitting in your books, So talk about the cost aspect of it. I'm sure you're saying
right. Lock extensions that you can't pass on to the borrower. Right. I've got loan officers that some loan officers have difficult borrowers, and those files sit around for a little bit. A stale file, nobody wants it. You run. Your technology would run, Anthony and Casey. They'd be like, no stale files. No, we can't handle that.
Right.
So there's so many.
What about your phenomena in California? I've seen some lenders that they're advertising refinances in California, but if you have a solar, we're not talking to you. You know,
right.
I don't want to deal with you. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Anthony, that having that tracker, being able to, being able to get to that goal, that's what the business is, and it's creating that accountability piece, right? And we all want accountability. Even our kids. We were talking about our kids before we went live. Our kids want accountability, right? They want to know what they're supposed to do. And so if we have that measure, man, that's it.
I agree.
That wins over right, guys?
Absolutely. And Joe, you bring up such a great point around, why does it matter if it's a purchase or refi? And when volumes hit where they are today, obviously lenders need to focus on the purchase business because they do have a definitive date when that loan needs to close. Where a refi, you can kind of move those dates. But if you think about the reason why those dates are being moved, it really comes down to the tasks that are involved, the manual tasks that are involved to get that loan to closing. So it's really, as an organization, identifying what some of those manual tasks are that are kind of slowing that process down. And let's identify some technology that can kind of automate that for you so that you're not doing those automated tasks. And now it won't matter if it's a purchase or a refi, you'll be able to get those loans closed in the same amount of time. Even with things like underwriting touches, as great as we're getting as an industry and how experienced we have from an underwriting perspective, underwriters are still touching files 3.5 to 4 times. I've actually seen numbers where it could be as many as 5 to 7 times that an underwriter's touching a file. That shouldn't be. There's really no reason for it, right? And we have the automation of running a loan through an AOS platform, getting the conditions. It's that upfront piece of, Joe, you had mentioned day one certainty and things of that nature. It's still a lot of that manual stuff, right? It's how do we get a clean
process architecture that you're talking about that defines all of those current tasks and states and when they can be done and optimizes that current state, that creates that step-by-step level type each task component that you're optimizing, really does cut down your costs and really makes a pride, like to what Paul's saying, it gives pride and ownership to your employees who are doing a great job and easily solving these problems instead of going off to do these one eliminated tasks to get this one deal done over this level. It provides more of like what you're showing here. It's more of like a graphical a depiction of what the people, the process, and the technology interacting together to the optimized state, right? Cheers to a call out for a man who died just about less than 12 months ago, Terry Wakefield, one of the founders of PCC. Wow, that was what he taught me from the very beginning, from day one, was process automation. And you're right on it, Anthony. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really getting that underwriting touch down to one. If an underwriter is looking at a quality file, an underwriter has all the information they need to make a lending decision. There's no reason for them to have to touch a loan 3.5 to 4 times, right? And Paul, I mean, how would that affect you if your underwriter only had to touch the file once to get that thing clear to close?
Yeah, it's right up there with closing escrows in 25 days and keeping to it. So if you think about the underwriter, if they're touching one file, if they're touching a file, it goes from 4 times or even 3 times to 1 time. If you think about just the economics of that, right? Obviously, I see Joe's head bobbing up and down. Like an underwriter in the operations line or in the operations world is one of the most expensive headcount team members, right? So if we're increasing their level of ability by 3 times, boom, off the bat, all of a sudden it makes sense, right? So we've got that. Now let's look at the underwriter is clearing conditions and ensuring that we're following guidelines, whatever whatever agency it's being sold to. What about taking the underwriter and saying, let's even be that more efficient? And now with the underwriter's additional time on their hands, if you will, so the underwriter now can start really giving, in case you brought this up in the beginning, that human touch, right? So that helps with that frictionless environment. So the underwriter can call someone and say, let's sit down and talk about this because we're not communicating on this particular condition or what this particular situation is. And let's walk through this instead of a 700 email strand we've all seen and we all just want to jump out of a window over. Having the ability to work with, right? Think about how that would level up the rest of your team, your processors, your closers, your LOAs, your loan officers, your setup department, executive level, like the pure conceptual, you know, if a solution like SLK can change the touch from 3.5 to 4 on an underwriter to 1, sign me up. Like that's amazing, that concept alone in itself.
Yes. That would be amazing. If an underwriter could come in and do her job or their job, do their job more successfully, and process orders, you know, and fulfill orders more successfully, and leveraging the right technology and right steps, Anthony, then you have a much more, you have a much better underwriter who's happier and will stay around longer and who will dig into those tough files, because there are some tough files we want to do. I know you live up there in Nevada, man. There's a lot of self-employed people that you got to do some funny stuff to get it to work, right? So that's when you need that underwriting strength to come in. And maybe that's an extra touch. And it's a bigger file.
You just nailed a great point there, Joe. And when you think about that, the frustration level for an underwriter when they're touching the same file over and over again and they're asking for conditions, it comes back to them and they're like, great, you got me 1, but I still need 17 more, and they have to continue to touch that file. Right. That adds to the frustration level, and it slows the entire process down, not just for that specific loan, but every other loan that's followed that's waiting behind that to get closed, right? So again, extremely important, and these are just really identifying areas where every organization can look at their processes and look at ways that they can, you know, really grasp technology and look for how they can streamline that process and pick up additional efficiencies.
Yeah, I love that. I want to keep us moving forward here, guys, but I also just want to add, you know, I think we do have, you know, this unique perspective to offer, and I love everyone's opinions and perspective, you know, operating within and alongside an extension of the lender as SLK does. We see these frustrations. We hear the underwriter's frustrations, right? And so, you know, I love how you guys are, you know, providing solutions and, you know, actually, you know, giving the listeners out there, you know, actionable insights and something they can take away and utilize. Like, how do we take this technology and help our team? Because let's not forget, guys, there's like a talent war out there too, right? No one can keep their underwriters, right? So you can keep your people happy, right? And you keep them and you put your people first, and your employee morale increase it. Again, it comes back to your brand. It comes back to, you know, it comes back to marketing. It comes back to your culture. And again, that interconnectedness, right? This all comes together with the people, the automation, and creating that frictionless, that seamless workflow. So I just wanted to add that piece there. I love the conversation. We're going to keep moving forward just a little bit. I want to keep you guys on task here. Again, I wanted to move forward, but maybe we're not. There we go.
Yeah, and again, just another couple of points here. You know, we talked about the QC piece and how that is such a manual process, just verifying that all of the information is there, everything was done right. This is an area where we are really starting to see organizations grasp the importance of automation in that QC process. It's really not something that should not be able to be automated, but, you know, even down to the smallest QC function of just kind of reviewing a CD and, you know, a lot of those things that have to be done today that are really manual, you know, getting that automation done and really speeding that entire process up. And that's the QC and audit function all the way through the life of a mortgage, right?
And is that what you're doing, Anthony? Is that what you're doing with your QC and your loan production? Are you kind of doing these parallel tracks for your clients? Is that how you're working it, or maybe you're going to show us?
I mean, it's a lot of what we do. And again, I'm really talking more of the industry as a whole. You know, I appreciate the questions about SLK and be happy to answer them at any time. But there's a lot of technology. There's lots of technology out there that'll really help with a lot of this. But again, it kind of comes back down to what's the cost to manufacture this loan, right? And we see those expenses continue to go up every year. And again, I mentioned earlier that part of that is the investment in technology that companies are seeing, because there is going to be, whether the technology itself isn't very expensive, it's what's the integration, what does that look like, what's the additional time and effort. And part of the reason that expense continues to go up is I think companies are starting to grasp the importance of technology and looking for ways to streamline processes. But are we choosing the right technology for my company, right? Every mortgage company, and one of the things that we talk about at SLK and companies like SLK is every mortgage company, even though they're doing the same thing and they have the same output, everyone does something slightly different, right? So just because the technology works for a subset of our industry doesn't necessarily mean it's the technology that you need for your organization.
I couldn't agree more.
And
That's so true. Yeah, because if you have the wrong LOS or you're dealing with Encompass, you got unique issues, right? That you got to deal with.
Yep.
If you're Paul and you're nimble with a nimble organization with a better technology, with a better API, he can pivot very quickly because he has the API available to him, right? Where
absolutely
you need to hire some, third-party service to come in and figure out what you can do with your API for Encompass most of the time, right?
Yep. So it's really identifying those areas, looking at what your process is, looking at areas where you would like to streamline, and then identifying the right technology for your organization to get those efficiency lifts that you're looking for.
I think the most important step with that, Anthony, and I couldn't agree more, is you sit down, and I talk about this so much, and I write, papers on this. It's quite interesting to me how some people will go and grab a technology just because it's new and it's sexy and it's there and people are talking about it. To your point, Casey, it recruits. That's a little backwards, right? To your point, Anthony, look, what is your innovation? What is your purpose? What is your innovation? Redefine process, procedure, work with your team, let your team get creative with it and be innovative with it, and then go shop for your technology. Then figure out what tech fits you, your culture, and your purpose. And I think that, and I know you said, this is not plug for SLK, but how important is it that there's a function in your company that supports that concept, that supports a architect, almost landscape function where you can look at process and procedure with your years of experience and understand, well, that, you can almost call out that might not be the best tech solution for you based on innovation, based on process and procedure, right?
Yeah, you kind of
you're 100% right.
Paul, you kind of went through that a little bit when you reformed your company and brought out Pinnacle, and you were doing all the analysis of all the different technologies. You had people looking at all of them. You had the matrix stood up. You were comparing Casey's company to somebody else. And
yeah. It's important, and it's not, there's that cultural environment piece to it, right?
Yeah.
And where is the company driving? And we're going to talk about this, I think a little later, but wow, how important is it to understand where you are, where your solution provider is, where the technology is, and where all of you are going? Are you marching to the same beat, right? Are you in 5 years, is it still going to be there? Because I don't know about you guys, I love technology, but man, getting it in the door and implementing it, and then adoption, that's labor. That's
absolutely.
And you don't want to change it.
No, you don't want to change it whenever you don't want to change it. You just want to leverage it better than what you're doing before. And I get that. I guess that's what Anthony's saying. So,
yeah. And that's kind of where we come in, as that partner. And it's truly the difference between having a partner and a vendor, right? It's having that partnership with an organization that can come in and what gives us a little bit of a benefit, or a lot of benefit actually, is working with so many lenders throughout the country, right? So we get to see the technology that companies are using. We get to see the processes that companies are doing. So we use more of a consultative approach and come in, let's look at your process today. Let's look at where your pain points are today. Let's identify areas where we're going to be able to see that efficiency lift, and then we can work with you to identify what technology is going to help you automate more of your processes and not just get, to Paul's point, not just look at technology for the sake of looking at technology.
Right.
Yeah. It's about, it's about, with all of those data points that we looked at, and it's so exciting to sit and look at, a couple of slides up where we talked about where we were, where we are, and where we're going in regards to close of escrow, in regards to underwriting touches, in regards to compliance and QC and purpose and meaning behind it and how you get through it. There's this concept that as an industry, and I'm starting to see this shift, and it's becoming more and more exciting to me, is being intentional with what our purpose is, right? And I've said a couple of times this word, I've expressed it a couple of times of being in alignment and the purpose of our drive to those data points. And so we sit back and look at the technology that we have and the purpose for our close of escrows being shorter, our underwriting touches being less. And if we take a look at those concepts and we think about, maybe as a company, the fact that we're all aligned for the same purpose and the same reason, and we look at what that can create in itself, right? Because we know when we're all aligned with the same concept, there's much more force and energy behind it than a singular person or two people, right? And that importance of being
else not paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. So that importance of being intentional about, that purpose, I think that goes a long way, as we were talking about innovation and technology. So if we look at the innovation,
and to Casey's point about recruiting, because sounds like Paul, your methodology is like a lot to do, that you have this power behind you, you have SLK behind you, and you're using these tools. You bring in better talent, I would think. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. And we bring alignment, intention. We bring the talent that will work with us as well, right? So it's better in numbers, it's better in revenue and units, but it's better for our environment because there's that concept of alignment. So if we look at, to your point, if we look at how, and you said this before, Casey, and I love this, it's all interconnected. It's all woven together, because we've been talking about the concept and idea of technology and taking that and bringing it inward, right? And that's for the purpose of this foundation of authenticity, so that at the end of the day, the consumer experience is good and it's real because we've experienced it internal, right? So if we look at technology as being, at the top, right? And how it moves around, almost like it's almost circular, right? And everything's circular there because it's a continuous movement with team, culture, process, strategic partner, with the focal point being the consumer. But it's all interconnected, and we all have to have this interconnected relationship for it to work. And I think, as we were talking previously, why is it so important to pick the tech stack after we have our innovation? Because in that process of innovation, we've all learned how to be aligned together, right? And so if we've learned how to be aligned together, and we have that foundation of authenticity, this concept of interconnected is going to flow a lot easier. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yes.
So, and so we're talking about strategic partners, right? So I'm gonna call you guys out, Casey and Anthony. So for SLK, how do you, and I think this is really important to hear, not just for SLK, but other strategic partners and lenders that are on the call, how do you strategically align yourself with your partners?
Well, I think
Great question, Paul.
Yeah, I think
look at that,
I
both jumped on it.
I know. I was gonna go. Oh! I'm just kidding, Anthony. I'll add just a little piece here, and then obviously I'll let you pick up the tail end. So it's such an interesting question. It's something I'm very passionate about. Working on the service provider side for many years, and it's really about evaluating the company on our side and understanding their culture, right? Getting to know them, understanding what their vision is, where they're going, not only where they are today, but where are they going, right? And from the lender's perspective, evaluating your service provider and, you know, really looking at who they are, right? And where they're going, and are you a match, right? So there's this interconnectedness that we keep coming back to on both sides. You know, I want to understand their culture. I want to understand their vision. And to Anthony's point, although everyone's doing the same thing, right? Manufacturing a loan as fast as they can, usually there's a million different ways to do it, right? Not a million, but you know, I mean, there's different workflows, there's different processes, there's different business models, and there's different cultures. And that really comes into play with one, being a service provider, and two, you know, choosing your service provider. And I think there has to be this synergy, and there has to be this relationship, right? And you want to be working together to make sure you're going in the same direction. So that's my answer. Anthony, what do you got?
No, I mean, you've nailed it, Casey, and it's something I had mentioned earlier, right? The difference between, you know, you have strategic partner here as opposed to, you know, a vendor partner, right? Or a vendor. And that's part of the challenge when you are able to go in, and it's something that we are really good at. You know, we spend a lot of time with our clients before any implementation of anything that we're doing with them, and really understanding what their process is, you know, what's involved in it, what is the culture of the organization, you know, really understanding how they tick, and kind of where it's not just this process, but where are you trying to get to, right? How can we get you to where you're trying to be? With making some tweaks along the way. And I think part of the challenge with a lot of companies is, you know, taking that feedback from a vendor that's going to come in and just tell you, this is your process today, you need to change all of this and do it this way, and this is going to work easier, whether it's, you know, with bodies or with technology, right? You have to change everything that you're doing, and that's never a good fit, because you need buy-in from your employees. You need buy-in from the organization. So it's understanding the processes and the procedures, and really knowing what the culture of the organization is, and then identifying what that looks like. Because as Casey mentioned perfectly earlier, it's at the end of the day, and Paul, you brought it up as well, it's about the consumer and what that consumer experience is like, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're doing all of these things as an organization with a focus on the consumer, it's how do you make that process, or what is it about that process that's really going to make the consumer happy, is working with an organization that is efficient, that is smooth, that is constantly in contact with you. You have people that you're talking to at that organization that are always happy and in a good mood. That comes across. The consumer is going to remember that entire experience, instead of just the end when they went to closing and I finally got here. It was a wreck the entire way through. I wasn't sure that we were going to get here, but we did. It's really building out ways to build in those additional touches to the consumer, to work with the organization within their processes, instead of coming in and saying, this is all wrong, you have to change everything. So it's becoming an extension of that organization and being part of the organization along with them.
So to your point really quick, Anthony, as you were talking about it, you know, it is about the consumer. That's our goal, right? And in the slide, it's perfectly, you know, it states it. They're at the center, they're at the focal point. But what we've been saying, I think, and I just wanted to add this, is we might as well level up our team. We might as well lift our team while we're concentrating on the consumer. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if we have happy employees, if we have employees that we're pushing to be, that we're motivating to be challenged, to be creative, to not be paper pushers, but to really think, what does their job mean? How can they improve it? Well, we've got efficiencies all over the place. And then what you said before, we've got happy employees. And that's like having a happy spouse or a happy kid. And you really would much rather come home to happy kids and happy spouses and happy dogs than grumpy ones, right? So we'd much rather work with happy people that are charged and invigorated and excited about what they're doing. And it brings them into the fold, kind of, so to speak. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but then what you're doing is you're almost, I guess by proxy maybe, you're asking your employees, what do you think? What do you think about the job that you do? Because you've got the time left to think about it. When we were talking about underwriters, you've got the time left to tell me, do you want to have a weekly 2-hour, please, if there are any underwriters, don't start sending me hate mail. But, since you have time on your hands now and you're just doing one touch with SLK Solutions, do you want to, have a call with all the loan officers on a weekly basis and just go over stuff, just go over new guides or whatever the case is? That's empowerment. For the most part, that creates happiness. And so it's that win-win. You're starting to build this foundation of alignment and an authentic experience. And that's, to me, how you really, truly create a successful department, organization, and company.
And not just successful today, it's successful for the future, right? Because you want to make sure you're not only being successful in the moment, right? When you have that solid foundation, built that culture, it doesn't matter what the market does, right? You have the right people, you have the right culture, you have employees that have your back, they're inspired, they feel like they're contributing to, right? And they're adding value too. And so you're not losing talent, you have this solid foundation. So if the market shifts, pivot, if there's Corona number 2, right, which I hope, I don't want to put that out there in the universe, but you have the right culture. No, I don't, X that out. But I'm saying you have the right foundation to move forward regardless what the industry does, because anything that we know is that everything is changing, right, in this industry, and that's the exciting part of it, and that's why we all stay in it, right? It's always like, where we're going to go, what's happening, what's next. We make predictions, but what I hear about this interconnectedness is having the right foundation, the right culture, and the right people, so that regardless of what happens, you are a solid unit and you can handle anything that comes your way.
That's really good.
Yeah,
really good. Good slide.
So we have just a couple more minutes. I know we went over a lot of information and a lot of topics, and I want to just leave some of the listeners with some key takeaways. However, I have so many ideas now. I see so many webinars coming out of this. I think the 4 of us are going to go on the road show now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a whole show. This is a whole podcast. I'm so excited about this. And what inspired me to have this conversation was I was listening to a podcast with one of the largest lenders, technology-focused lender, and he talked about innovation doesn't always equal technology, and that blew my mind. And that's what started the conversation, and started looking at people and automation and how to add them together to create that seamless workflow and really transform your process. So thank you guys for all your input. So just a few key takeaways. There we go. So what Paul, Anthony, Joe, what are some takeaways you think that we could leave our folks with today? Anything that they can be asking their service provider today, anything that they can be evaluating internally. I'm going to hand it over to you guys because you guys are the experts on the lender side.
and I will continue this, and it's so much insight has been given to me, and I hope everybody obtained insight and different ideas and thoughts, but again, it's about that authentic experience. So in looking at solution providers, partners, partner solution providers, whether that's a service or a product, adding to your tech stack, or even a team member, right? So it's about that concept of alignment and being dimensional, so being 3-dimensional, and ensuring that you're looking in your house, if you will, to level up the experience, to level up the file flow, to level up processing, the process, not processing, as a function, to ensure that we're all driving towards that consumer experience. Because if your house is messy inside, at the end of the day, the consumer is either, 1, going to get a glimpse of that, or 2, it's going to cost so much time, money, and energy to flip the consumer experience at the very end that it's just not going to be worth it, and your team's going to be exhausted. So really, the solution provide, you're back to that, what we were just talking about. You've got to be interconnected. That's my key takeaway, and I'll talk that till I'm blue in the face, but it's got to be authentic. Your drive can't be because I want to close 200 units this month, right? Your drive has got to be, I do 30-day escrows, I deliver this amazing product and service. Maybe I'm not the sharpest price, but I know I can do what I can do, and my consumer is engaged, educated the entire time. There's minimal surprises. And so that's what occurs internally.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really good. Anthony, you gonna jump in there, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's really about, as Paul said, it's all about the culture and being interconnected and making sure all of the pieces are flowing together, right? And I think one of the best ways to do that is to really spend some time, and we're talking about technology and we're talking about people, and it's having those conversations internally about where are some of the pain points for every role that you have within your organization, right? Where are some of the pain points that you're having that causes your day to slow down or causes you the most frustration? Look for areas of building some additional efficiencies and process improvements, and then find the right partner to work with and identify ways that you can automate some of those processes, because it truly is going to make the entire experience for everyone that much better.
Yeah, I think for me, to wrap up, Casey, that this is what I took out of this thing today, of many things, but this is the main reason that I think I took out of this whole thing, is that this innovation that you're trying to do inside your organization is all interconnected with all the relationships, not only with your customers, but also internal relationships you have with your employees. By aligning your staff and building your business around excellence and goals that are attainable, you develop a purposeful growth with your organization that leads to happy employees, that leads to many more months of being in business, years, I guess you could say. So
absolutely,
this alignment can't happen until you can go to the innovation side and study it, and then get everybody's influence and buy-in to make it better. And that alignment allows you then now to have this growth. And so it is the trifecta.
Yeah, it really is. If
I
could just
love that
you guys,
trifecta.
Trifecta. Write that down, Paul. Write that down, everybody. I hope you're taking notes.
I did.
Casey, here, your graphic right here, I don't think that's the best graphic, because it's kind of so in alignment, right? Because I'm not getting off on a fork of the road. This is all together. We're on the same road, right?
Right. Yes. I'll blame my marketing team for that, Joe.
Okay.
I'll pass that off. You know how we do, we blame other people. And I think if I could leave, everyone with one thought, it's, to actually, as a lender, ask your service provider, ask your vendor, ask your strategic partner, where are they going, right? What are their plans? Who's running the show? Who's steering their ship, right? Because when you understand, ask for a roadmap. When you understand who's steering their ship, you'll be able to see, is it a match for where your ship is going, right? And having that synergy and having that connectedness. So don't be afraid to ask questions. I sometimes think that lenders hold back and they're afraid to, really dig into their service provider and ask them, the questions that make sense for their business model, for where their company is. New York is very different than California, right? So always, you have to be asking the right questions, and don't be afraid. So that's kind of what I want to leave you guys with. I think we have a few time for questions. I think, Joe.
Yep, I'll take the questions here. Okay, so here's a question. Will you send me the recording? Of course, we'll do that for you. Everybody gets a copy of the recording. That's not a problem. But here's another question that came from the field. And it's to Anthony. Anthony, what are you seeing today in COVID-related experiences, and how is that type of work affecting your implementation timelines?
So for us, it's really not. And part of the reason that I say it's really not affecting us is, this has been a global pandemic, right? And SLK is a global outsource provider. We do a lot of different things. One of the things that we did very early on last year is made a decision as an organization, kind of seeing where the industry was going, knowing what this was going to do, where interest rates were. And we went out and invested heavily in hiring people, spending a lot of time training them on multiple processes, with now knowing that as we signed new clients and brought new processes in, we didn't have to go out and try and hire people and then train them, which always extends that timeline. We invested early as an organization and did that hiring and training so that when we do bring these new processes in or bring new clients in, we have the people ready to go and we can get things implemented very quickly.
All right, next question. Paul, this one's for you, Paul. The question's related to, Was there a non-starter for you in your engagement with SLK, that this was the technology that you were using and you weren't going to change it, and so they had to conform around that? Or was there anything that you said, hey, I had to have? Or was there a big disruption that made you have to make a big pivot to a different technology to support your own vision? If so, what is it?
No, and I hope I'm answering this question, providing the answer that was looked for, but I believe that there has to be fluidity, right? And so, a little while ago, I said, hey, man, not only is the technology expensive, but man, right now I'm going through implementing the new accounting software, and that's a lot. And then adoption, right? So the technology that we have, we're married. We're probably not going to leave it for all intents and purposes. So in working with a company like SLK, a solution provider that works with you in your operation function and how things move through, I think it's about, again, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it, but it's about that interconnectivity. And so they have an understanding as to where we are, what we do, and yeah, we can tweak things, but, maybe SLK could learn from the technology that we have if they haven't used it yet, or if they don't have access to it. So answering the question with a no, but not in a negative way, a no with allow for fluidity. There's always workarounds. There's always workarounds.
Was there one technology that you had to have that your team said, no, this is the best service provider in our markets? Maybe that's an appraiser or appraisal firm or something like that. Is that something you had to have?
That I was not able to get? No.
Okay.
I mean, we've built our tech stack we have all of our wants.
Great. Yeah, I've been watching you during that whole time that you stood this whole thing up. So it's been very impressive. So Casey,
thank you.
I don't particularly have a question for you in general, but I do have a question personally.
Okay. Is it about the hat, Joe? You want to know more about the hat? Because I'll send you the details, okay?
You've had that hat for a few years now. But I think it's more so, how are clients coming to you today now? Is it just like they're falling out of the woodworks asking for automation, or are they all just too busy that you have to kind of go seek them out? Or how has been that for you coming on to SLK?
I think it's both, right? There's always, two parts to it. And I think that with the changes that's happened in the industry in the last year, and the changes in, talent, and, with the huge volumes that we've seen, industry has just had a shift. People and lenders are willing to look at other solutions, probably a little quicker than they normally are, right? They're like, we need more hands on deck. How do we do that, right? Is it through automation? Is it through outsourcing? Is it through a third-party service provider? So, I think that the conversations are, they're natural conversations to have, and I feel good about calling up my friends, or when I say friends, I mean mortgage lenders, right, that I've worked with over 10 years, providing different solutions, saying, hey, we have this great solution. I'm seeing, we are making a real difference in the pipeline and the turn times with, this lender over here in California, like, let's have a conversation. I want to help them, right? So I feel really good about having these conversations when I see, what we've been able to provide for our current clients. And then I think that there's also, this huge push, as we've seen in the industry with technology innovation. And our industry has done such an amazing job at innovating this year, right? And we're going to see some big things come out of some service providers. And everyone's kind of wanting to have that conversation, like, what's next, what's new? We got through it, we made it, but we need the automation, we need additional tools. And, I think when you're talking about efficiencies, which we've talked about over and over again, it's consistency, right? And how do you create consistency? It's really through automation. It's the coupling of the people with that automation. So.
Well, this was a really great panel today. Thank you, everyone, for this great panel. Paul, because you're our key board person for the CMBA, could you give us a quick little pump up for 2021? What would you expect to see in our industry, and what are the things you're hoping for in 2021?
I think 2021 is going to be about, concentrating on the new normal, if you will, working together as a collective in the industry, and how we can provide that experience for the consumer and internally. So going back to that talk about being really authentic and alignment. And there's really honestly no better place to start than with the California MBA. Their ability to kind of bring people together that are aligned with the same concepts and core beliefs and morals and how they run their business, I think is so detrimental in our industry and so supportive to all of the lenders and solution providers. So I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at.
Well, as a huge fan, Paul, it was a great segue to the Mortgage Innovators Conference in 2021. It's now, our date is set. It's May 4th and 5th. So talk about getting together.
May
and
the
sharing
4th
ideas
be with you.
We're going to be here.
May the 4th be with you. That's right.
Yeah, we'll be virtual, but it'll be great to share again with you at that time. So thank you very much, everyone. Tell us how we did. Please complete our survey. We really appreciate all of the time and attention you gave us today. And thank you very much to our sponsors, Accelerate. Thank you very much to our panel. And thank you so much, Casey, to bringing Anthony and Paul together to do this. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Have a great 2021. All right?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. This is great.
Hi, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. This is
Bye-bye.
awesome.